Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to really get our hands dirty with India's largest bank, SBI. You guys sent in a ton of stuff for this one. Earnings call transcripts, research articles. We're going to boil it all down to the key takeaways about SBI's future outlook, how they see the industry, and the strategies they're using to get there.
What's really interesting is that SBI is kind of like a bellwether for the whole Indian banking sector. So what they do and what they predict really gives us a glimpse into what the future of finance in India will look like.
Okay, I am ready to dive into this stuff. Let's start with SBI's own outlook for the future. What really stood out to you?
Well, first of all, they're projecting overall credit growth of 16%, which is pretty huge. And there are two big things driving this. A really strong corporate loan pipeline. And they're also continuing to focus on growing that retail presence.
Yeah, that corporate loan pipeline. We were talking 6 trillion rupees. That's a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
What does this tell us about where SBI sees the biggest opportunities?
It looks like they're really bullish on a few specific sectors, like renewable energy and infrastructure, which makes sense. The government has been pushing pretty hard for sustainable development.
So they're kind of aligning themselves with, broader economic trends and government priorities. Makes sense. But I also noticed that even with all this growth, they talk a lot about maintaining asset quality. They use this phrase, qualitative underwriting. What does that actually mean?
It basically means they're more concerned with, the quality of the loans they're giving out than just giving out as many as possible. They're really looking closely at, who they're lending to and making sure those loans are actually going to be repaid.
So it's a more careful, a more sustainable approach to growth. I like it.
Exactly. And you see that same kind of careful optimism in their retail banking too. They want double-digit deposit growth. But they seem to be more focused on, building customer loyalty, providing good service, not just competing on interest rates.
Right, so building relationships, not just transactions. Speaking of interest rates, though, they had some predictions about those, too.
Yeah, they're actually predicting a rate cut in February, although they think it'll be a pretty small one.
What makes them think a rate cut is coming?
It seems to be based on their view of the whole industry and, overall macroeconomic trends. They think inflation is going to cool down in the coming months, which might give the Reserve Bank of India a little bit of room to lower rates.
Okay, so it's not just a random guess. They're connecting the dots between inflation and what the central bank might do.
Exactly. And don't forget, interest rates affect everyone in the economy, borrowers and lenders alike. So it's definitely something to watch.
We'll be keeping our eyes peeled. So we've talked about SBI's future outlook. Now I want to hear about their perspective on the industry as a whole. What kind of challenges and opportunities do they see?
One thing they highlighted was co-lending, especially for meeting those. Priority sector lending obligations.
PSL. Right. I know that's a big deal for banks in India. Can you give us a quick rundown of what it is and how co-lending fits in?
Sure. Basically, PSL means banks have to lend a certain percentage of their loans to specific sectors that are considered important for development, like agriculture, small and medium enterprises, affordable housing.
So making sure credit flows to, sectors that might not always be the most profitable for banks.
Exactly. And that's where co-lending comes in. It's a partnership between a bank and a non-banking financial company, or an NBFC. The bank usually takes on most of the loan, and the NBFC focuses on things like, reaching out to customers.
Yeah.
And getting those loans started.
So it's like they're teaming up, using each other's strengths to reach more people.
Right.
And didn't SBI say they're building some kind of tech platform for co-lending?
Yeah, they're investing in technology, right, to make the whole co-lending process more efficient, easier to scale up. It seems like they see this as a pretty important part of their strategy moving forward.
Got it. So they're using partnerships in technology to handle those PSL requirements while still growing their lending business.
Exactly.
Very clever.
Right.
Very clever.
Sounds like they're really thinking ahead.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about co-lending. But another thing that jumped out at me was their focus on technology, specifically for preventing digital fraud.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, their real-time intervention capabilities are amazing. They're using AI and machine learning, not just to spot suspicious activity, but to actually stop customers from getting scammed. That seems like a huge GE step forward in terms of, building trust and security.
It definitely is. I mean, the whole financial landscape is changing so fast. And digital threats are just exploding. So what SBI is doing.
It protects their customers, of course.
Yeah.
But it also protects their own reputation. And it shows that they're serious about responsible banking. Makes you wonder, What other cool ways they're using AI and machine learning?
Now, tons of ways. Well, for one, they're using it to personalize customer experiences.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about it. SBI has millions of customers,
Right.
so they have a ton of data.
A ton.
And they're using that data
Yeah.
to create custom recommendations,
Yeah.
personalized offers, to make banking more relevant for each individual customer.
So it's like having your own personal AI financial advisor?
Kinda, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
And beyond that, they're also using AI to streamline their internal processes.
Like?
Oh, everything. Loan approvals, risk assessments. They're making things more efficient, more data-driven.
So it's not just customer-facing stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about making the whole bank run better.
Exactly.
Okay, so they're all about tech.
Yeah.
But one thing that really stood out to me was their emphasis on building a strong compliance culture.
Oh, yeah.
They even talked about making organizational changes to support that. Why do you think that's so important for SBI? Especially now with all the regulations and stuff.
Well, there are a few reasons. First of all, there's just way more scrutiny on the financial industry these days.
Yeah.
We've seen some big scandals that have really shaken people's trust in banks. So SBI is trying to be proactive, transparent.
Showing they're committed to ethical practices.
Yeah, exactly. Second, the whole regulatory landscape is changing so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Both in India and globally, there are always new regulations coming out to address new risks, to protect consumers. So SBI has to stay ahead of the curve.
Make sure they're doing everything by the book.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're saying, look, we're not just following the rules because we have to. We're building a culture where compliance is part of everything we do.
Exactly. And that sends a really strong message to investors, regulators, customers. It shows that they're serious about responsible banking, and it helps them avoid problems down the road.
Okay, so compliance is key.
Yeah.
But we talked earlier about SBI's focus on asset quality.
Right.
What are some of the challenges they might face with that, especially with how much they want to grow?
Well, there's always this tension between growth and risk management. As SBI expands its loan portfolio, they have to be super careful that they're not sacrificing quality for quantity. It's a balancing act.
Like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. And then there's the fact that risk itself is always changing. New risks are popping up all the time. Geopolitical instability, climate change, new technologies. SBI has to be able to adapt and constantly reassess their risk management strategy.
So it's not just about sticking to the same old rules.
Yep.
They have to be learning and evolving
All the time.
to keep up with a changing world.
Exactly.
And then, of course, they have to manage risk across, a huge and diverse portfolio.
Right.
They operate in so many different sectors,
Tons.
each with its own risks.
Yeah,
That's got to be tough.
it is. But SBI has a lot of experience.
Yeah.
They've been around for a long time.
A long time.
And they've seen it all. They have a pretty good track record when it comes to managing risk.
That's good to hear. Okay, so we've talked about corporate and retail banking. But I was also really interested in their focus on niche markets, specifically their products for women and senior citizens.
Oh, yeah.
What's the thinking there?
Well, for one thing, those are two huge and growing segments of the Indian population.
Makes sense.
India has a rapidly aging population.
Right.
And women are playing a bigger and bigger role in the economy.
So it's smart business to cater to those groups.
It is, but it's also about,
Yep.
financial inclusion, empowerment, by offering products that are specifically designed for the needs of those groups.
SBI is making banking more accessible, more relevant for everyone.
It's like they're saying, we see you, we understand your needs, and we're here to help.
Exactly.
And this focus on financial inclusion, it ties in with their PSO obligations and their overall goal of contributing to India's development.
It all comes together. Right. It's all connected. Their strategy, their technology, their commitment to compliance. It seems like they're really focused on not just profits,
Yeah,
but the well-being of their customers and the future of the country.
I think so. It's a very holistic approach, and it shows that they understand how the role of banking is changing.
Speaking of changing roles, we
Yeah.
talked earlier about their premier banking services. For high net worth individuals,
Right.
how does that fit in with, serving all these different customer segments?
It's about recognizing that. Different customers have different needs. SBI is committed to financial inclusion, serving a broad customer base. But they also know that high net worth individuals need something different.
So it's a balancing act.
It is.
Mass market appeal on one hand,
Right.
specialized services on the other.
Exactly. By offering this whole range of services, They can be a one-stop shop for all things financial.
Like a financial ecosystem
I like that.
where customers can find what they need, no matter what stage of life they're in.
Exactly. And that kind of approach is really important in a market that's changing so fast.
Okay, so back to their industry outlook for a sec. We talked about their prediction of a rate cut in February.
Right.
What are some of the things that could affect that? Like, what factors will the Reserve Bank of India consider?
Well, as we said, SBI thinks inflation is going to slow down.
Right.
And that's a big deal because controlling inflation is one of the main jobs of any central bank.
Of course.
So if inflation goes down, the Reserve Bank has more flexibility. Maybe they'll lower rates to boost the economy.
So it's this balancing act.
Yep.
Keep inflation under control,
Right.
but also help the economy grow.
Exactly. And it's not just about what's happening in India. They have to look at the global economy, currency fluctuations, what other central banks are doing.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
Like steering a ship through a storm.
I like that analogy.
Right.
You have to constantly adjust course to stay afloat
Yeah, that's fine.
with all their knowledge of the Indian market and their global connections. They're in a good position to do that.
Okay, before we get to our final thoughts, I want to circle back to co-lending one more time.
Sure.
Especially for those PSL obligations. Can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of co-lending for both banks and NBFCs?
Yeah, definitely. For banks like SBI, co-lending is a way to reach new customers in new places without having to build everything themselves.
Makes sense.
They can partner with NBFCs.
Who already have a presence in those areas.
Exactly. NBFCs often have more local knowledge, expertise in specific niches, so banks can tap into that.
Expand their lending network.
Right. And from a risk management perspective, co-lending allows banks to share the burden if a loan goes bad. Since the loan is underwritten jointly, the risk is spread out.
So it's less risky for the bank.
Exactly.
What about the NBFCs? Why do they want to partner with banks?
Well, for one thing, they get access to cheaper funding.
Oh, how so?
Banks usually have lower borrowing costs than NBFCs.
Okay.
So by partnering with a bank, an NBFC can get money at a better rate.
So it's a win-win.
It is.
Banks get to grow and manage risk.
Right.
And NBFCs get cheaper funding.
Exactly. And beyond that, NBFCs also benefit from the credibility of the bank.
Especially if they're a newer NBFC.
Yeah.
Partnering with SBI gives them a boost.
It's like a stamp of approval.
Right.
And remember, SBI is building that tech platform for co-lending.
Yeah.
That shows they're serious about this. They see it as a long-term strategy.
It's like they're building a more collaborative financial system
I think so.
where everyone works together.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be a big trend in the future of lending in India.
Okay, so we talked about co-lending. Now let's dig a little deeper into how SBI is using AI and machine learning to fight fraud.
Okay.
How does that actually work? What makes it so effective?
Well, AI and machine learning are really good at analyzing huge amounts of data and finding patterns that might indicate fraud. For
Right.
example, they can track customer transactions, monitor account activity, and flag anything that looks unusual.
Like a digital detective.
Records detecting.
Always on the lookout.
And what makes AI and machine learning so powerful?
Is that they can learn and adapt.
Right.
The more data they analyze,
Yeah.
the better they get at spotting fraud. So the system is constantly improving.
Exactly. And the fact that SBI can actually intervene in real time?
To stop scams from happening?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It shows how sophisticated their systems are. They're not just detecting fraud after the fact, they're preventing it.
Exact.
That makes online banking a lot safer.
It does. And that's really important for building trust.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So besides fraud prevention, are there other ways they're using AI and machine learning?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like what?
Well, we talked about personalization,
Right.
but they're also using it to
Yeah.
improve operational efficiency
Yeah.
in things like loan processing, risk assessment, customer service.
So it's not just about the customer experience. It's about making the whole bank run smoother.
Exactly. By automating tasks,
Yeah.
analyzing data, generating insights, AI is helping SBI to become a more agile and data-driven organization.
It's like they're using technology to make smarter decisions.
Precisely.
And that's going to be a big advantage for them
Yeah,
as the market gets more digital and data-driven.
absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about that compliance culture again.
Okay.
What role does technology play in that?
Technology is really important for compliance.
How so?
Well, SBI can use data analytics to monitor compliance metrics, track employee behavior, and identify potential risks before they become big problems.
Like a digital watchdog.
Exactly.
Making sure everyone is following the rules.
Right. And technology can also be used to automate compliance training, track employee certifications, make sure everyone is up to date on the latest policies.
So they're creating a digital environment where compliance is built in.
Exactly.
And for a bank as big and complex as SBI,
that's essential.
Yeah.
It helps them manage risk, be transparent, build trust with regulators and customers.
Like they're saying, we're serious about compliance, and we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Exactly. And it's not just about checking boxes.
Right?
It's about creating a culture of ethical behavior, responsible banking.
It's about setting the standard for the whole industry.
Exactly. Now, we've covered a lot today, but it's important to remember that SBI faces challenges, like any big organization.
Of course.
I mean, navigating the Indian market is tough. And then there are the risks that come with new technologies.
Right.
It's a lot to handle.
Like sailing through uncharted waters.
Yeah, in a way. But what impresses me about SBI
is that they're willing to embrace change,
right,
adapt to new challenges, invest in the future.
They're not afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
They're excited to explore new possibilities and shape the future of finance in India.
And that makes them a fascinating case study.
It does.
They're not just a bank.
Nope.
They're a reflection of
the energy and ambition of the Indian economy.
Like a microcosm of India's economic transformation.
Exactly.
And by understanding SBI,
we can learn a lot about the forces shaping the future of India and the global financial landscape.
It's like they're holding up a mirror
to the world,
showing us both the opportunities and the risks.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought.
Sounds good.
The future of SBI and the whole Indian banking sector.
It's going to be shaped by a lot of factors.
Technology regulations, consumer behavior. It's a complex equation. So here's something to think about. Given how fast the financial world is changing, what trends do you think will have the biggest impact on SBI? And how will they need to adapt to thrive in this new environment? Something to mull over. Until next time.
Happy deep diving.
It's a great question. And I bet SBI is thinking about it too. When I think about how fast things are changing, the first thing that comes to mind is fintech. You know, all those tech companies disrupting the old way of doing things.
Oh, yeah. Fintech is a big deal.
They're a challenge for traditional banks like SBI.
True. But I don't think it's necessarily a zero-sum game.
What do you mean?
Well, there's definitely competition.
Right.
But there's also a lot of collaboration.
Oh, interesting.
Banks and fintech companies are working together.
So it's more like a partnership.
Yeah, more like a dance than a fight.
I like that. A dance.
And SBI seems to be pretty good at this dance.
Oh, yeah.
They've been partnering with fintechs and adopting new technologies.
So they're not trying to fight it.
No, they're embracing it.
Smart.
It's a smart move.
Why?
Because they get the agility and innovation of fintech.
Right.
But they still have their own huge network.
And their customer base.
Exactly.
Best of both worlds.
Exactly. And that adaptability is going to be crucial for SBI.
I can see that.
They can't just sit back and relax. They need to keep evolving.
Keep learning.
Integrate new technologies.
And business models.
To stay competitive.
It's like they need to think like a startup. Even though they're this giant institution.
I like that.
A startup mentality.
Exactly.
Okay, so fintech is one trend. What else is going to be big for SBI?
Data and analytics.
We talked about how they're using it for fraud prevention.
Right, but that's just the beginning. Data is becoming the most important thing in finance.
Wow. Like the new gold.
Exactly. It's a valuable resource.
That needs to be mined.
And refined.
And SBI has a lot of it.
Oh, yeah. They're sitting on a gold mine.
With all those customers and transactions?
Exactly. They have so much data.
What can they do with it all?
Well, they can use it to personalize services. Identify new opportunities.
Okay.
Manage risk.
Right.
Even predict future trends.
It's like they can see the future?
In a way, yes.
But they have to be careful with all that data.
Of course.
Privacy and security are important.
Absolutely.
They have to use it responsibly.
And ethically.
To create real value for their customers.
Exactly.
Sounds like they're on the right track with their focus on compliance.
I think so.
Okay. So we've got fintech data and analytics. Anything else?
Sustainability.
ESG.
Right.
Right.
Investors and customers are demanding more from companies these days.
In terms of social responsibility.
Exactly.
They want to see companies doing good.
Not just making money.
Making a positive impact.
Exactly.
And for a company as big as SBI, it's a big deal.
It is.
They have a lot of power. And with that comes responsibility to be a leader in sustainable finance,
Right.
supporting green initiatives, businesses that are doing the right thing.
Exactly.
It's like they can use their financial might to make the world a better place.
Exactly.
And it fits with their vision
Mhm.
of contributing to India's development in a sustainable and inclusive way.
It all ties together.
It does. It's a win-win for everyone. SBI, their customers, the planet.
I agree.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored SBI's future outlook, their view of the banking industry, and their strategies for navigating this crazy financial world.
It's been a great deep dive.
It has. And I think it's clear that SBI is not just reacting to change, they're shaping the future of banking in India.
I agree.
And they're doing it the right way, focusing on sustainability, inclusion, ethical practices.
They're setting a good example.
They are. They're showing that you can be profitable and innovative and still be a responsible company.
A good message for everyone.
It is. So to our listeners, as you watch SBI's journey unfold, think about this. How can their approach inspire you in your own financial decisions and in the way you think about the role of businesses in the world? Until next time, happy deep diving.